Good afternoon, everybody. It's October, and as we're looking at the start of school, the school year, and also we're looking at putting together next year's county board budget, and so much is going on with technology. I thought it'd be a wonderful conversation to have about artificial intelligence and its impact upon the county schools, as well as the county governance. I don't know a lot about this topic, but I'm going to ask some questions, and hopefully we've got experts here who will be able to guide us through how the future of artificial intelligence is going to impact what we do on a day-to-day basis, and how it will assist and add to good governance in the county, as well as assist in knowledge acquisition, and again, good governance for our schools within Kane County. So with that, I'd like to introduce Roger Fahnestock. And Roger is our Executive Director of Kane County's Information Technology and Building Management. Roger's been with us for over 20 years.
Yes.
Yes. And then equally, seniority is Phil Morris, and he is the Director of Operations and Technology for Kane County Regional Office of Education, and Phil has been with that for 28 years.
Yes.
So welcome, gentlemen.
Yep. Thank you.
So what the heck is AI?
I can start, Phil, unless you want to, but the artificial intelligence is something that's been around for a long time. You may hear about it from Microsoft or Google, probably are more familiar, or OpenAI. There's also IBM, and like if you've heard of Watson, there's a couple different types of AI. The more common generative AI, which is like taking text and writing things from it, or even taking text or descriptions and creating images and even artwork that is done, those types of things. But it's really a matter of how do you take lots of information and learning, and some people will refer to that as like machine learning or deep learning, where lots of information, images, text, data is consumed and processed through, they generally refer to it as like nodes and layers. And those nodes and layers are not like storing it like a traditional database, but they're learning characteristics about the data so that it can make similar types of data and recognize and assemble different responses for you that are related and responsive to your chat or to your question or to the type of request that you have of the engine or the AI service that you're using. Some of the ones that I'm really familiar with would be like Chat GPT. I've used they used to call it Bard from Google, but they now call it Gemini. Microsoft has Copilot and Azure AI. All of those do similar and different things. They have different features, and they're good and better at some and other things. Adobe has a really good text to image generator, as well as there's a couple of other ones. I think Canva. Yeah, so you can describe what you would like to see in an image, and it will use that information to produce an image that fits your description, as opposed to you providing a picture and a description. You give it a description of what you would like, and it will render or it will create an image. So those are some of the things that AI does.
Phil?
A good example for this, I recently attended a conference, and they had everybody there look at 6 different pairs of images.
Okay.
And the images look very, very similar. One was the real image, one was AI generated. By the end of going through 6 pairs, nobody guessed every single pair correctly.
Oh my gosh.
So it shows how we would have to really dig in closely to find the differences between the real and the AI generated versions. But that's how close we're getting now.
In one way it's remarkable, and another way I'm aghast, if I can use that word. It reminds me of the cartoons that you see on the weekend newspaper. Guess what's the difference between the two things? They look very similar, and there's 12 differences. Go find them.
Yep.
But a little bit more finite.
And I think an important thing to note is that it's still, even at like 50 years, 60 years into this, it's still in its infancy. You're just starting to see the uses of this and some of the real-time learning and some of the things that maybe the human mind can do through sensory perception just haven't been tapped into. But and maybe they won't be able to get to that point, but it is still at that kind of early phase in AI. Is
extraordinary, extraordinary. So we've got government, we've got schools, and we've got county government. With that capacity that we're talking about, let's start from the beginning. Phil, have you used this? Has this been implemented in our school districts?
So, it is very infant, as Roger says. It's not being used much at the student level. In fact, I don't think at all. It is being used at some of the administrative levels for basic functionality. Everybody's still just dipping their toes into this. When you look at products like we talked about ChatGPT, but now the way I like to look at it is all of our devices, our personal devices now, are gaining an AI function.
Correct.
So, more and more people are having that experience to see it and it being used. You do the Google search and it will give you right at the top the AI response. So, is AI being used? It is in that way. It's also being used to help draft some policy procedures where you can put in, some different requirements. But then it still takes much review. What AI will produce for you is I like to call it a good first draft. It is not near a final. You do need to go in and do some editing and check it for accuracy.
Of course.
Even the responses, I was doing a check just yesterday. I did a search on Google and for requirements for a certain position, and it came back and listed the requirements, but it was missing 3. So if I went to went to the actual code, that's where it actually gave me the extra 3 pieces. So knowing you're not getting 100%, you're getting 90%. You still need to check it.
All right, that's for a text document and just to do research on a job qualification. Right. What about us? What are we using it for?
So, in general, I think the first thing is that we're really a consumer of the product or the things that come from ChatGPT. So we're consuming it. We're using the different tools that are online, and I think, as Phil said, that we have a lot of people that I think use ChatGPT to draft or to create policy documents or to create things. I like to tell people, if you want to start with chat or start with one of the AI technologies, it's great if you have a few bullet points and you have a writer's block and you're not sure how you want to write something. You can ask it to draft a paragraph for you, and here's 3 points to write about. I will tell you that sometimes the vocabulary gets a little bit over the top, and it may not be the way you would say it. It does come off a little bit canned or expression. But we use it for So you could take something, let's say like an attendance policy, and say, based on these bullet points, could you draft an attendance policy for me and give me that in a structured policy in a PDF form, and it would give you that in a PDF form, and it would write it up. And one of the things that's really good is you need to engage in the chat conversation, and it will refine the work as you keep asking questions. So that's one thing. Another thing is...
Hold on a second, just again.
You're talking to the machine.
So I have a document that I've asked technology to put together for me. And I look at it and I go, well, instead of myself, who I'd go by and I would edit, I would research it and bring new information in there on my own research. Instead of me saying, okay, what am I going to look for? I go, ChatGPT. I need A. What else do you have? Instead of me doing it, I'm asking for artificial intelligence to find the information, to do the query.
And then the beauty thing is, once you have it all developed, you can say, now turn this into a PowerPoint for me.
Or a summary report or an executive summary. So one of the things that I have done in the recent few weeks, and this was at a request that you had made, we were talking about whether or not you could do some interesting reporting or summaries from the budget presentations. So I took the budget and some of the budget information, uploaded the files into a chat program, and then asked it to draft a summary of the differences between 2024 and 2025, and give me a executive summary for the budget.
Okay.
And it will kick back 3 pages of notes on the differences between line items, and then it actually provides narrative for the county regarding you've making a serious investment in personnel and staffing. And they're using that to describe, the investment that the county is making in personnel. So it's interesting, and it'll take from a file and generate content that's new and original in a report format. And as Phil said, you can generate PowerPoint or slides from it, and you can actually export and download them, and they're ready to go. You do need to edit and read yourself.
Oh, I would hope. I would hope.
To make sure
so.
that it's accurate.
So one of the things, it says that we're going to able to communicate to our citizens more appropriate, more tactical concerns. So if we have a population in, let's say in Campton Hills, who's worried about water, perhaps, or land use, we can approach them with ChatGPT or artificial intelligence, whatever platform, to say, this is what the county's policy is, and this is how we see your future growth. Now, Aurora and Elgin may have no concerns about that at all. But we can then go to Aurora or Elgin population and say, you're concerned about traffic, let's say increase of traffic. Well, here's your response there, so it becomes highly technical. But the concern I have for that is that, are we segmenting population and just giving them the information that we want them to have? Very much like an advertiser. You look for a pair of shoes, you go online, you look for shoes, all of a sudden you get all these shoe ads consistently on every social media platform. And if you look at one pair of shoes, it'll come up for days afterwards or weeks afterwards. Is that going to be a concern, so that anytime somebody from Elgin would write to us, we would say, well, here's your transportation concerns answered, even though it may be more subtle than that?
So, I think the nature of any type of chat bot or chat response is that, you have to provide the data and the context for the question. So chat bots are really programmed to try to extract that from the person. So the questions might start out with geography and some demographics and some things. And then from there, it kind of narrows in, and the question is that exchange. And it is a strange experience for some people, because you are talking to something that is artificial intelligence. It's not a person. So depending on your language, your other maybe barriers that you have in communication types of things, it can be a challenge too for people. But at the same time, it is programmed and learned to understand human expressions in English or languages and respond. It's not perfect, but once it narrows it down, I think it can provide accurate and good information for the public. And we're using some things like that in different areas. We do some things with contracts internally, where we're sifting through contracts to get certain information from them. And that's for our own internal purposes. But externally, we also have, it's actually more human driven, but the idea is to get it to where it's more automated for court information. So if you're talking to the court and you know your case number, eventually the goal would be that a chatbot or something automated could actually talk to you about your next court date, where you need to go, who is representing who, those types of things you could automate. And then, again, there's the question about, well, what does that do to employment? What does that do to people that are working those jobs now? And I think a lot of it is that it's timely, it's faster for the public, but you do have to consider that if that's something that it just simply enhances the responsiveness of the thing? Because we still have people that walk in face to face. We still have
I would hope so.
all
I
the
hope so.
contact points. So I think it's kind of an interesting discussion when people start talking about the displacement of work versus
I've read that.
versus the reality is that there's no substitute for human interaction.
Oh, no, none at all.
So
None at all.
so I think
There's a subtlety to it that mechanics will never have.
they're a teacher, a lawyer, a police officer, a judge. There are certain things about the human interaction that they have not achieved the artificial intelligence. I call it artificial intelligence. It's human.
So I'd like to ask you, I was reading an article yesterday about the non-native speakers who are attending St. Charles schools and some of the challenges they may be having as they're children who are picking up a new language relatively quickly. Is there technology that's currently being used in the schools, a translation that is helping them acquire the competency in English language, and then vice versa?
There are some tools that are being used. I don't know exactly which ones, but it's not covering the full gamut.
Okay.
Though. There still is that, because of all the different dialects.
That's what I was going to ask. Okay.
Of all the different languages, it can't quite get there. It does help with some basic translations. I mean, you'll see a lot of people, will use Google Translate. That's AI powered.
Yes, it is.
And you can get some basic communication back and forth, but it's not the best translation source.
Does it have the capacity, as we've been talking about, of actually learning from that individual who's either speaking into it or typing into it, to be able to, within a few weeks, starting to acquire the depth of knowledge needed to have adequate translations?
I think those tools are there, but I think we're still so early.
So, when you're using one of these products and you're getting responses, there is actually the opportunity in the response to say this was not a good response, or it wasn't accurate, or it was, or
That's
it's
not
kind
what
of
I meant to say.
It's kind of the thumb up, thumb down, and believe it or not, that the session and the system learns from that. It learns from the fact that I didn't say this correctly. Let me try a different way, and it will go through and reassemble and try to put another version of it in front of you. And there's even, one of the things I like is to try and test different models or versions from the same chat provider. So you'll have like Chat GPT 3.5, 4.0, there's the mini version. And if you run it through all three of them, you'll get a little bit different response.
I'm smiling, everybody in the audience, because all of the technology gurus who are sitting behind the cameras here are all nodding, oh yeah.
Yeah, it is neat. You see the different responses.
Yeah, and it's a thing. You'll run it through one, and if you go and you get, because Google's not using ChatGPT 100% in their background, whereas Microsoft Copilot is, versus actually taking it through the straight ChatGPT direct.
Direct, okay, instead of the filtered version.
And then, now with all of it coming out, we've seen recently, Apple's coming out with Apple Intelligence, which is going to build an AI right into the phone.
Yes.
It's still coming. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but there will be more game changers like this. How it will disrupt everything is hard to say.
All right, let's talk about the practical side, because we're talking right now a lot about thinking, right? And translation and helping people write words. And I love to write, so I'm very protective of the words that I use. It's something that I take great joy in. But what about just basic accounting? I would assume, easy. A great fit. So you put in numbers, you start looking at data entry very quickly, being able to do data analysis relatively quickly, and then spitting out the summary statements for a chief financial officer or a superintendent to see population growth planning. Very strong on that, I would assume.
There's several products right now, that are being used by school districts that they take all the demographic data and they analyze it. It's all done behind the scenes, and then you get some good reports out. So, I think it's expanding on, if you look back a few years ago, Tableau was a very popular product that was used. And I think expanding on some of that to do more of those analytics is definitely one of the benefits where AI is going to really start to help us in the back end.
And then, all right, so you've got the data analysis, and we're taking a look at taxes, right? Because
Sure.
revenue sources. Will it show lead of where our needs are for both the schools? Same thing. For schools, needs for maybe more computers or more buildings, right? Or need to increase air conditioning, infrastructure support.
So-
And for us, for our myriad of things that we do here at the county.
I think the challenge would be to provide, the data set or the point of reference for the artificial intelligence to be looking at, and it has, billions of referential points for things that are from its own knowledge, but you still, if it's something new to you, it's new to the artificial intelligence too. So you ingest, say, a report or a table or a set of data, or you connect that data to an interface. Maybe it's through business intelligence like Power BI, or you mentioned Tableau, and you're connecting your data to that, and then on the other side of that, you're using maybe artificial intelligence or one of these programs to try to do revenue forecasting, or trying to do maybe you're trying to connect
Expenditure forecasting.
Yeah, if you're trying to connect or correlate like school district data, it could be something like we do the community health survey, and then we also do demographics and other things where you're surveying. You have the American Community Survey.
Correct.
All these other things that are out there that you want to try to cross-reference and correlate. It would be very good at that.
Okay, that's what I thought. That's
Yeah.
what I thought.
You do-
But we don't use that. I'm not, perhaps in schools, but I'm not seeing that yet here.
No,
It's-
we're not actively like promoting a program that's doing that. I think that's the future, though, as this gets mature. That's where you get into being a consumer too. So a lot of the products that we use for financial management, courts, public safety, you'll want to be using those products, and they will mature and start using AI and those types of things in their product. So we'll be benefiting from it as the user of, say, a financial management system, and they'll say, we have this new tool where you can have AI generate revenue forecasts and revenue streams for you, and it'll actually come up with different ways for you to forecast. Is it based on a flat percent? Is it based on certain economic indicators? You're looking at inflation rates, you're looking at CPI costs, you're looking at different things.
And also dynamic
Yeah, and we'll
budgeting.
tell you what your sales tax revenue is going to be for the next 5 years. Those types of things are powerful.
Phil?
It's just it's such an infant space right now. We don't realize it. We think it's more out there than it really is.
All right, good. I think that everybody brings people comfort.
I really do. I think it's
Yeah.
we're so early on that, I mean, like Roger mentioned early on, has AI been around? It has. It's been running on the back end of a lot of things.
Yeah.
But now we're actually getting it to that personal level. So that we're so far away from where it's going to be.
And oftentimes through government, we hear people speak about waste, overspending and waste. And one of the things I think going forward would be very interesting to see about, I was saying dynamic budgeting. So if we happen to see an increase, let's say in foreign language needs and translation, money should be put into that area for maybe the next 2 years. But then that problem is solved, so it doesn't stick there unless there's a need for other people who want to learn different languages, so it grows. But if that population is successful and doesn't need it, that dynamic money doesn't sit there, it moves into something else. And the same thing with the county. We know that 70% of our general fund goes into judicial public safety. Well, maybe where it really needs to go is to opioid or fentanyl prevention and instruction with that. So you would take it away from, God bless the sheriff, Ron, I don't mean to take money away from you, but to shift it into social services to prevent that. And then once that problem is resolved from a population, the money goes back then and shifts into another concern.
I think AI has a strong suit for correlation of events. So things that are correlated, things that have relationships, and you can establish the strength of the relationship, or is it inverse in relationship? As this goes up, this goes down. As this goes up, this goes up. And it can draw those out of large amounts of data. And it can do it probably in a way in which it's maybe easier to disclose stuff about large amounts of information than if you as a person are trying to read through the 40,000 pages of data that we have for financials. I know that's a question that we get all the time is can we simplify the financial reports?
Oh, for
how many
public,
transactions
yes.
a month?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, but correlating it to things in society that are being impacted by that money, I think is a great connection.
So that's on the human side. Let's talk about buildings and structure. Because I was reading that AI also has the capacity to help out with that. You have old buildings. Some of those, their schools date back from the 1920s. I know Lincoln School that has just been shifted over, Lincoln Elementary in St. Charles, I think 1910-ish, around that time. We have a building we're sitting in right now. That was one of the first buildings in Kane County. So there's a mixture of new buildings and newer buildings and very old buildings. But there's waste, there's use, there's air conditioning, there's water leaks. How can AI help determine that infrastructure needs so that we know how we can control the cost of utilities, of energy?
So, one of the things that we do look at are like building automation systems, sensory, there's things like sensory networks that are related to, they call them smart cities or smart technology. But one of the things you do with, say, artificial intelligence is you learn from your sensory network. So let's say every day I come into the office at 6 o'clock and I walk in and the lights go on. I walk out, an hour later and I go to the meeting, the lights go off. The parking lot is used at certain times and we light the parking lot in the evening, but at 10 o'clock we shut the lights off. Can we make those things more intelligent?
Yes.
And we learn from what behavioral things are happening. So the court schedule changes and nobody's there at night anymore. Do we still have the timer going off at, all the way until 10 o'clock at night? Or does it learn from that? Same thing with heating and cooling. You can learn from the sensory network or the smart, and we're working through the current building automation systems to try and get more technology to control what used to be a mechanical system. Now it's really a computer that's controlling those things. So learning from it and then allowing some of those tools eventually would give us maybe adaptive settings that are more automated than what we would do as a person. We have 30 buildings that we're trying to operate. We're not looking at them all the time, but if you had some general rules and general guidance and it's learning from the buildings and you're saying, when it hits 72 degrees, we don't need any more cooling, and when it's certain temperature, those are set points that we do now relatively manually, and then the thermostats try to keep up with it. But you can learn, and it can also be somewhat self-healing too, where if something is not working properly, it actually starts to generate more cooling because it realizes it's too warm. So there's some interesting things with that, with especially electricity. And now we have solar.
Yes.
So we're learning more about our different electric providers and maybe some intelligence about where we're consuming energy from, while it's being provided to us, understanding it more real time.
So you've got with the schools.
Very similar.
Yeah.
Schools are very similar to the county's operation. There's Kane County alone. We have about 200 buildings, school buildings, that are.
And each one is on their own circuit,
Each one
district.
is obviously each district, and they've got their own systems, and many have been upgrading. I like to go take it all the way back to even my house now. Most of us have a Google Nest or something like that, or an Ecobee at home. Okay, we got to relate it back.
Manual operation.
And right now, though, my Google Nest is saying to me, "Would you like to join this program? I'm going to learn your habits."
Yeah.
So it's wanting to learn when I come home what lights I use, because I've got all kinds of different automations in the house, and it wants to learn all those things so that it can better just in my own home. And all we're doing is taking these technologies that are kind of set for home and now just putting them into the bigger corporate, larger buildings like the county and our schools. So the same types of technology, we're just trying to make it for a home, but now bigger.
So that's electricity and cooling. What about water? Pipes leaking?
You can do the same thing, sensory, to understand consumption and use of water. So we do a lot of flushing of large water systems in buildings to try to keep the water moving or keep the quality and testing. And we do now have automated systems to do some of those things. We are not, monitoring it with some type of artificial intelligence to help us make decisions. Again, we're using set points and controls and schedules. Again, you only have so many people to look at everything, so having something that's able to do some interpretive types of things while certain circumstances are happening, it could become very valuable. We're not doing those
I think
yet.
would be very valuable.
I think for conservation, it could be very good to
Yes,
look at
absolutely.
behavior and start to give models for behavior to people.
To that system.
To say,
Water
if
system.
you want to save energy, whether it's water or if it's electric, you can come up with, call it like a recommendation engine, and you could even take input from the different people that are occupying the buildings too. So,
Sounds like future jobs for all of
Yeah.
you. The opportunity. All right, we've got a couple other things that have been talked about, and one is pretty futuristic for me, but I can see the potential for it. People oftentimes, they want to make sure that their communities are safe, right? That you're able to. Kane County, by the way, enjoys great safety. We're one of the safest counties in the United States, and we want to maintain that. So you'll have Big Brother maybe looking after us and saying that you see an anomaly happening. That's mentioned that is a strong potential of AI. Now that may be not something that the two of you handle, but there's opportunity for definitely the Sheriff's Department, for the Police Department, fire departments to be able to have access to this kind of information and understanding of population differences. Somebody's walking around here on the campus, and I know we have cameras all over, but at 2 o'clock in the morning filming. What are you doing here?
Yeah.
And why are you here?
So predictive analysis of things is really something that's going to be more and more prevalent, where it's taking information. Again, it's kind of like a sensory network, but you're taking information, whether it's from reports, from cameras, from things like ShotSpotter, where there are all kinds of technology out there that are bringing in data, and then what do you do to get predictive value from it, or to get something that you can be actionable about? And I think those are the types of things for, especially law enforcement, or for public safety, for emergency management, storms, weather cases. I know our Office of Emergency Management is trying to get better at providing resources in an emergency.
Oh, yes.
And being able to adapt depending on where the problem is, because sometimes where the problem is, you don't have the resources because they are in a crisis mode.
Correct.
So what do we have available? Where do we have it? What's the piece of equipment, machinery, staff, people that can get there the fastest? Getting better with an incident response technology that they're working on. I think that'll be huge for.
Oh, that'll be
the future.
wonderful. What
But
about
even
our
on
schools?
the tech side, though, I mean, we're, all of us have, we all have firewalls, and that are protecting, and between the firewalls and some other services that are monitoring our networks at all times, 24/7. I don't have 24/7 capabilities myself. I can't be watching my network 24/7.
Oh my gosh, no.
I never sleep.
No.
But there are other services out there that I contract with that are continually monitoring the safety of our network and making sure that we're not, maybe not, getting a cyber attack, or that, if it's looking, if I've got where, if somebody tries to download something and it realizes that it's possible malware, it reaches a certain level, it will actually disable that user and disable their device.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So this is kind of happening real time. I know the county has
Yeah.
similar product, just to kind of make sure we're monitoring the safety and security of our own networks.
Absolutely. My
And the
reference
schools are
was
the
towards
same
people.
thing.
Yes. So for school safety, because parents are concerned, and
Mhm.
rightly so,
Yeah.
are there monitoring systems to look at unusual behavior
There
that
are.
immediately then get notified to the police department?
There's things like that do facial expression and body language to
Mhm.
determine, is a person happy? Are they frustrated? Do they look tired? Do
But
they
not,
look...
that's not.
Well,
But-
when you're coming in
Yeah.
through a security point and
Yeah.
you're being checked,
Yeah, but in schools, we
they
have to
don't
be
have
careful.
that yet. But
In schools, there's still a lot of privacy
Yeah.
laws
Yes.
yeah,
that prevent,
yeah,
and a lot of that type of levels of monitoring.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
They can have, they have cameras on, security cameras on,
yeah.
and even though those
So-
cameras have a lot of capabilities, they
Yeah.
have to have a lot of that functionality still turned off.
Okay.
There are
because of-
systems like that
Yeah,
do
because-
it though, where they
Oh yeah,
they can actually take the reference points of a person's face, and then they can actually use it to search through a library of video to find where that person appears throughout all the video.
hmm
So it's just a facial recognition, and they're using it to search for you by your characteristics, and not just going through, like a search engine. It's literally matching these reference points to video and identifying at what time point you're in the video. And I'm not saying we don't have these types of things running. Yeah,
Yeah.
but they do exist.
yeah.
So
The existence, but I think that's
Yeah.
you talk about some of the
Yeah.
things that are going to be, kind of to watch as we go forward.
I think
Privacy
rather-
is going to
mhm.
be one of them.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because that's
and security of people's privacy is really important too.
Mhm.
I'm not trying to
yeah.
Oh, that's
sidestep that.
my notes share that. So
Yeah.
the next thing I'd like to talk about, and I think this is an important conversation we need to have because I don't think we have that. And the same thing is going to be with the schools because it's going to be shared. The database centers for AI. How are we going to be able to support this new infrastructure? We know that Microsoft is going to have Three Mile Island nuclear reactor. One of the reactors is going to be uploaded again, and it's going to be
Oh,
operational in a few more years to power simply Microsoft's data centers. I mean, holy cow. And that's only a small segment of what the potential needs are. What are we going to need to do as a county for just our own infrastructure to help prepare for all of that?
I think the biggest thing is for us to keep maintaining current technology through investment, which is probably the best we can do, not falling behind when it comes to having modern operating systems, modern access to things. We are going to be a user of a lot of this technology,
Of
so
course,
having
of course.
the network infrastructure and bandwidth to connect to it, to use it. The processing side of it, I was reading about some of the chip makers and how they're building the chips to handle artificial intelligence and the processing that's required for it. That's actually still being developed and matured and being purchased, but most of that is deep computing power in really large data centers like Microsoft. So we're accessing technology, or even just a small portion of the technology that they're able to provide. So just making sure we don't have any impediments to that we have the network bandwidth,
Okay.
the right computers and software in place, keeping things maintained. But they're developing that with the mind that their customers are going to use it, and they want you to subscribe to it.
Of course,
So
of course.
that's really where I think we need to be
Yeah.
conscious.
What about the schools? Because
similar. It's because, I like to say, if you look back 15 years ago, and this would be true for the county, your expenditures on technology
Yeah,
compared 15 years ago to
Has
today
increased.
are substantially different.
That's a dynamic pricing budgeting I was talking about.
And it really, so today's costs are a lot
Yeah.
more. And so to try to keep up with the latest,
yeah.
and making sure you're turning over equipment within, 3 to 4 years before it becomes end of life.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be that we would go with something until it was considered end of life.
7 years.
say 7 years.
Yeah.
Now, that's not, you don't want to go that far. You want to stay in that 4 to 5 year range max. And then the bandwidth. We'll never have enough bandwidth. You know, I think it's a constant keeping that up, because everything more and more with all the streaming services, subscription services, you know, before you used to get that disc, if you will, and you'd install it.
Or the
Everything
flash
now,
drive.
you know, everything now is coming off of the cloud through there. So you need that to stay up. And then the other piece that goes hand in hand with it is all these expenditures to keep it secure.
Of course.
The cybersecurity.
And it is, it
And
is
what-
an exponential type of growth too. So it's
What
hard to
is
keep-
that cost compared? So you've got the equipment and the software. What percentage do we have to be aware of to keep cybersecurity robust?
Boy,
That's
that's
a
a good
tough one.
question. How much is enough? You know the old saying, you can be insurance poor.
Yeah.
You can buy as much security, as money can buy, and the next best thing is the next security vulnerability
Okay.
too. So you try to do fundamental things right. The fundamentals are really important. Some of the basic things that you can do with maintaining software and operating system versions, maintaining
For
perimeter control, antivirus.
Always update.
Um,
If once an update,
you know,
update.
Update.
Yeah, and then you can go beyond that. Some of the sensory types of things where you're watching for certain types of malicious traffic, malicious type of activity. You're shutting down things that you think might be suspect. But yeah, I think we try to temper our anxiousness to buy the new toy or the new technology, and try to do fundamentals really well.
Okay, all right. Okay, very
For
very
government
good.
at least.
Well, we know students come and they go, come and go, and they're voracious
They're
learners.
creative.
They are.
They get creative in the library. Yeah. Sorry, students. No.
As well they should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As well they should.
Yeah.
They definitely can challenge every aspect of your network.
Yeah.
And as Roger would say, same thing. One of your weakest areas of your whole network is your inside of your own network.
Okay, yes.
Is your
okay.
weakest space.
Yeah.
And
It
so
is tough.
in a school district, it's your network is all your teachers and your students are on the same network. They're inside of your space.
Yeah.
And the county is the same thing. All the county employees are behind. So they're the ones we have to almost protect them from themselves.
Okay. So, last question.
Sure.
More for you, Roger, and Phil, you may jump in on this as well. We have an election coming up, and there's been a lot of concerns about election security to make sure that every vote is counted and it's voted properly. We have brand new voting machines, and voting machines are no longer at the schools. I'm aware. I don't think any of our schools have voting in there anymore that I'm aware of. I may be wrong, but I don't think so. So they wouldn't be networked within your school districts, but certainly within the county. How is AI protecting our technology so that we don't have some brilliant high school student who just kind of figured out how to break into a machine and cause some disruption? And by the way, you want to hire that kid.
Yeah. You want the really smart people that you want them to be ethical hackers, right? Be on our side. So but the one thing good about the election system is that it's offline. It's not on network.
Okay.
So it's happening in a closed environment. The only time that we're really transmitting information, it is actually on a secure private network. It's not the internet. It's not, and it's encrypted, and it's actually in a secure path. It's monitored. It actually has election judges on both sides. So a lot of times when people talk about the election and security, I would like to remind them, outside of the staff and people at the county that are involved through the clerk's office, there are Republican, Democrat election judges at both ends of this. They're the ones working in the tabulation. They're doing the work of the election. So there is a lot of oversight and a lot of human intelligence that's going into this. So as much as you try to be safe and protect things from a technological perspective, keeping it off of the internet so that it's not something that somebody's going to hack. You also want to make sure that you provide enough assurances through the election judges and the independent poll watchers and things like that to let them know that this is a human process and that there are people watching and that they're there to police and to report. We do have the state's attorney's office available to file reports and complaints. One of the things that I tell people is that if you believe that there's something going on, report it immediately so that we can get someone to investigate.
You see it say something.
And knock on wood, we've been doing elections. I have with the county, and Phil has helped in times, and 20 plus years of doing it. And I can say that I don't know of any incident where we've had that type of a problem. We do, like anybody else, have issues that come up that are explainable, or they're problems with certain systems, but they're certainly precautions taken. I don't know that any of it's like AI at this point, but there could be some things in the future where you take information maybe from the election system to validate, verify, or report, or to synthesize some information from it. But we would never be connecting it, to the common language is they say it's air gapped.
Okay.
It's not on there, so that's the.
Well, I hope that gives everybody some hope, knowing that, and some peace, knowing that the election is going to, here in Kane County, is going to be protected. Your vote is going to count, and it's not going to have any interference with it.
No.
Well, this has been a really interesting conversation. I want to thank you both. I think I've learned a lot. I hope everybody else has learned a lot as well. Coffee with the chairman is always a fun time. It's always a big learning curve for me. I look forward to getting some technology upgrades so I can try out ChatGPT and the Adobe. If I can think about an image, I'll.
Just think about it and have it produced.
It makes you an artist. There is a lot of challenges in the art community because of the licensing and copyright.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's a big area too.
Absolutely. Portraits. I mean, oh my gosh, and people just creating people who are real people, but they're not real people. And have those false people saying things and doing things that a real person would never do.
Style and technique. Copying someone's style or technique, there's actually a large concern for that.
So privacy. So I look forward to having you both on board for many years yet to come to help protect our privacy and to be able to grow the system to benefit the citizens of the county. So thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you for having us.
And thanks everybody for coming.